Welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring Christopher David Mitchell. We hope you enjoy this conversation. So Christopher, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique.
Thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. We've been wanting to have this conversation for a while, and I've followed you on the old IG and love the chats you've had previously with people. So it's a
pleasure to have you here. It's also a pleasure to have my first ever co-host. Caps, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. My name is Kapil Sahnan. I'm one of the consultant surgeons at St Mark's. Really excited for this conversation today.
Fab, thrilled to have you both here. Christopher, today we're going to talk about your journey, and some of our listeners may have already heard about you or in fact seen your video on YouTube about your inspirational story, and it's a real pleasure to have you here to share it with everyone today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. That video. I mean, do you want me to dive into the video?
Absolutely. Yeah. Please feel free to introduce yourself and let us know a bit about your journey.
Christopher David Mitchell, and like Liv says there, I suppose I put out my story, my journey throughout with ulcerative colitis and having an ileostomy bag, which I still do, and I didn't really know what to expect. There's a lot of story to putting out my truth there. But I didn't really know what to expect. I was pondering on it honestly for about a year, maybe 2 years. And I think some of the scary thing was that I was contacting like friends or even some family members and stuff and saying, I've got this feeling that I just want to share my truth and it just feels right to just be authentic. I feel like I'm hiding the shame now. And, I could make it into a positive message. I'd never wanted it to be a woe is me video. And, but a lot of friends said, don't do it.
Oh, wow. How come?
Well, because what I realized was they couldn't do it, and the reason why I think it did get a lot of views, I think it's at 3.2 million now or something like that, which sounds crazy, was because I think most people wouldn't do it. Like it's that sort of, that makes it sort of, I think so. I don't know. So it was really difficult decision for me. And, on the video, it's called My Survival Story, if anyone's listening here, living with an ileostomy bag. If you just type in ileostomy bag into Google or YouTube, it should come up fairly soon. Yeah, so even though friends were saying, maybe don't do it, because that would be their perspective and their choice, and that's what they would do. It's just that intuition, it's just that inner voice that sort of, you just know it feels right. There is that intuition guiding you, and I just could feel that it was the right story to tell it at the right time. I mean, I came out of my surgery in 2013. I didn't tell the story till 2019.
Oh, wow.
So that's six whole years, because you can't just tell it straight away, and the funny thing was, this was the interesting point that I was coming on to, was that I was so conscious about it being a sob story, like, oh, look at me, I've got a bag and all this stuff, that I remember that when I started coaching, I became a bit more successful with I used to be a singing coach, and I coached Boy George, and I coached him, and we were at Wembley, and we were having some beers after, and it was an amazing day. And I said, I can do it now. I said this to Boy George. I said, I can tell my story now. And he said, why? I said, because now it's got that happy ending to it, because that was the ending that I wanted, which I think really sort of helped me, motivate me through the whole journey, really. I probably had it in my mind that I was going to do that from years ago, but I wanted to show that you can come back, you can be successful, you can go on to do new things.
That makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
Just to interrupt you, I think what you've done is brilliant. The first time I met you, Chris, is when you funded some of my PhD research. And I don't know if you know this, but you had a West End show where you invited some of your friends and colleagues to sing.
Oh, yeah. Christopher David Mitchell's client night.
Absolutely. That's when I met you when I was doing my PhD at St Mark's many moons ago. And that's how much you gave back to the community. And now, when I'm in clinic, patients have said they've watched your video. Or we talk about pouch surgery,
and I know
about stomas, and it's brilliant. And you should be so proud.
Oh, thanks, dude. That means a lot coming from you. You know how highly I think of you as well. But like, I think that some of the surgeons at St. Mark's have actually come up to me and said I've just shown it to patients. So yeah, it changed my life. Quit vocal coaching after that as well. So it really did change. It changed a lot of things in my life, and I knew it was going to. So yeah, I pondered on it honestly for a long time.
There's so many specific things that I think we should dive into and get a bit more kind of clarity on from that whole journey. But before we do, I think it's important to perhaps look at what life was like before stoma surgery for you. What were those symptoms like? What were those years like? What was life like?
Well, everything came around really quickly for me. So I got diagnosed. So I was a singer, performer. I'd been doing like a tour of America, and I did a cruise, and I did something in the West End for a bit, and life was generally going pretty well. I was doing some modeling back when I was better looking than I am now, and I was very adventurous, very fun life. Things were going great, like I said in the video, but it was so quick. It was 26, got diagnosed. At first it was, Caps, you get me on this. Is it, what's the very bottom? Is it proctitis? No.
Yeah, so inflammation.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Okay.
That last bit of the colon, yeah. That's what they said. That was my very first thing. I said, oh, it's proctitis, it's this. And then it was, oh no, it's actually proper colitis. But there was nothing. I think I had a tiny course of steroids this would have been 2012. And then that was it. And then 2013, everything just came crashing down just out the blue. I just started, like I said in the video, bleeding. It's hard for me to remember now, but yeah, 20 times a day. It's weird thinking about that. Losing so much weight. I was down to 8 stone, and it was just an emergency into St. Mark's Hospital. It was just an absolute emergency. Luckily my mum was there and my dad the whole time, because I was so weak and I was so drugged up to the nines, that I couldn't have really made any decisions, honestly.
What was it like working with those symptoms, or did you have to stop relatively quickly?
So it wasn't that I was like ever living and dealing with the colitis. It was like up until June or maybe even August 2013, I did a West End gig. I produced some at the Indigo 2. I did a modeling shoot in Italy. I was fine. And then it just came on, and within 2 months, I just completely deteriorated. So I never had to like manage being ill and working. It just was like August, I started, and it just was like getting worse and worse, and like really, really bad. And then I think it was October, so like 2 months after, I had, the colon out and the stoma and stuff like that. It just was just a whirlwind, really. It was crazy.
That's incredible. I mean, for many patients, it isn't as quick as that. It's a kind of an indolent course. But for you, international travel, model, West End singer, actor, and 2 months, everything changes. I mean, it's an incredible time.
And like, the funny thing is, I did really well those years after. Sorry, we're not going to after yet. Don't worry.
No.
I actually think that I was on such a fight or flight thing. People were like, you're coping great. In 2014, 2015, 2016, a lot of the stuff hasn't hit me till, honestly, recently, sometimes. Like in and around that health video time, like that 2019, 2020, 2021, that was when I stopped. Just stopped doing stuff a lot. So it's been a long process, and I think it's because, like I say, it was such an emergency intake into hospital that I wasn't thinking, wasn't contemplating. It was just survival mode, like literally the whole time.
I'd love to delve a bit into the recovery from surgery. You've just mentioned that there may have been a flight or fight mentality for quite a long time before you came to terms with it, and that's actually something that a lot of people I speak to on this podcast say, interestingly. But first, from a kind of physical recovery perspective, what were the kind of weeks and months like following your surgery? Do you remember those?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I did the normal stuff. I didn't go to the gym for say 3 months, 6 months, maybe 6 months actually, and then I didn't go that much. I was too worried about it. Physically, fine, really. I actually went to Italy in January, so that was like 3 months maybe after. To go. I was inspired to go to a vocal coaching seminar, so I went out there to Italy. I had a great time, but I think actually I recovered pretty well physically. I'd say within 3 to 6 months physically I was fine. Obviously, as we know, mentally I was probably all over the shop, but physical body wise, yeah, I felt normal in 6 months.
Caps, is that a normal recovery period in your experience?
So it's very kind of bespoke for people. And as I'm sitting here, I always learn from you, Chris, every time you tell me your story. But I can just see this escalator of life going with everything before surgery just working for you. And then everybody must be telling you, and yourself as well, keep going, keep pushing, keep pushing. And it's interesting that you describe survival mode of years. You know, that's 5, 6 years of being a survivor. And only now you're contemplating and thinking about it. You're reflecting and taking it all in. And you, of course, were super fit before you started your operation. You were an avid gym goer. So that was the norm for you. It wasn't a recovery. That's what normal life was. And so I might just delve into that very quickly. What was going to the gym like for the first time, and how did you draw inspiration as to when you should go?
Well, when we were in hospital, us guys, we all needed some inspiration. We all needed like a mentor or something. And we all loved Blake Beckford. Like, what a legend. Like, no one's done what Blake's done. No one. I don't care if you get your stoma, I don't care, whatever. Like, me, no. Like, it's to have done what he did, and to have won like a bodybuilding competition and go out there in your Speedos with your bag out. I mean, what a legend. So I think that was a bit of like, if he wasn't around, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to tell my story, because he was I never met the guy. I mean, I would love to, but he was a huge part of like inspiration. And I think that's what I wanted to do with my story. But frankly, if Blake wasn't around just to show people that maybe it could be done, I think I would have felt really bad about the gym. Or I might just said, well, I'm just not going to bother. I'm just one of these old people on this ileostomy brochure. No offense to the old people, but do you know what I mean? We don't see many role models or people going to the gym that much. We do more now. It's so much more active now, even with, what you're doing, Liv, and here, and you meet these people. But even 10 years ago, like it was only Blake, like that was it. So I think he really helped, and it just made me think, okay, it can be done. And then, just slowly got back into it. I still get a little careful because I don't want this prolapse, and still, and you know what? Every personal trainer I've had, I say, oh, I've got an ileostomy bag. What's that? Not one of them has known. But anyways, that's side tangent.
Hopefully that will change as we continue to have more conversations like this.
Yeah.
In terms of your mental recovery, I understand that you kept your bag a secret for quite a long time from some of the people closest to you.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think the only people that knew were obviously my family and a few close friends. So it was almost like a frustrating bunch of years for me where, people on Facebook are getting on with their lives. It's hard to see that when you feel like you're held back on the sidelines of life a bit, with this stuff. Hence why, now I'm terrible. Like I've got the YOLO syndrome. You only live once. Because I think when you have been held back a lot, like that's when you actually go for life sometimes. But I've forgotten the question.
What was the changing point for when you started to tell people about your surgery?
So changing point when I started to tell people was not after till I did the story,
Oh, really?
not after till I put it out there. It was almost like that was the, like, I can't be bothered to explain it anymore. Just watch the video. It works great on dates.
Refer to this
let me
link.
tell you. It works great on dates because it's so awkward. Not that I'm like, hey, it's date one, you should watch this video while I go to the toilet. But it's just, if you can, you know, rather than explaining the whole story all the time to everyone new and stuff, it does really help to just say, you know, you can get my life story in 7 minutes, you know. So I don't think I really did open up till the video. Hence why I think the first line of the video is, this is a secret I've kept in for 6 years. Yeah, but after I put it out, it was almost like, well, I've put out now truth. It's out there. I've got nothing to be ashamed of anymore. So I can talk to people easy. It's almost like that was the catalyst, the telling the truth, to then be like, all right, now I can just say it.
You mentioned the word shame there. Why? What about your stoma made you feel shameful?
That's a good question. I don't think it was necessarily about the stoma that made me feel shame. I just think it was just like, I'd always been a high achiever. And so to spend that long, we're talking, I mean, I had another surgery in 2017. We're talking about 4.5 years probably of literally going to hospital every 2 weeks, not doing anything, not doing any career, living off benefits, no dates, no sex, no women, no nothing, you know. And it was almost a shame of like, of my life, the circumstances that where it wasn't necessarily about the stoma. I don't think.
And was the turning point for no longer feeling that kind of shame making that video as well? Or did that come from something else?
Yeah, absolutely. It's exposure therapy, isn't it? Basically, it's like, if you're scared of the number 9, you better put number 9 all around your house, and you get used to it, you know. And believe me, we couldn't have even had this conversation if you caught me in 2015. I remember just feeling that nervousness. I suppose it's more, there's a lot of emotions. Maybe shame's in there. Maybe it feels, you know, because it's embarrassing at first, you know, a stoma, poo, and all this stuff, you know, shitting into.
Yes, wherever you like.
Shitting into a bag, you know, it takes a lot of self-development to be, yeah, I've got an ileostomy bag, and just confident about it. Because the first times when I was out talking, you know, I was like a nervous wreck, telling someone. So then I just said, I'm just not going to bother.
Can I just ask? So, if you were to go back a couple of years and speak to a young Chris who's just had surgery, what do you think we should do better? Or what do you? And I don't mean we as doctors. I mean we as, you know, people like Ostique, social media, anybody watching this. What can we do better for the young Chris's of the world? How can we counsel and help them?
I mean, I'm not sure you probably could. I mean, if anything, there probably, from a hospital point of view, there probably should have been a bit more of psychological help.
Yeah.
I'd say I don't think I even got offered it. I didn't hear about it. I've heard that some people maybe have, but I think that was the thing that ruined us all, you know. I mean, obviously I was on the ward with Phil, who was mentioned in the end of the video. None of us are really suffering physically. Well, I mean, yes, but when I should rephrase that. When you've got ulcerative colitis, which I never really have, that's the thing. I only had it for like 2 months. And now I've got the ileostomy bag. Physically, as Caps will tell you, you can be pretty fine. So that's not true. Phil was struggling physically, but I think where we all struggled more is mentally. And and psychologically, and all the effects it has on, changing, your whole life. Because as we know, like with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like health's on the bottom. You take away the bottom, like domino, as it were, the whole thing collapses. There's no career, there's no nothing, there's no anything. So it's, and quick story on this. So before I got ill, I was Chris Mitchell. And when I came out, I was Christopher David Mitchell. And I sort of did that on purpose. And the funny thing is, the more I've looked into it, there's so many cool people who've done the same. And I'm like, oh, they instinctively did the same as me, and intuitively did that. Like David Goggins was like, now he's Goggins, and before he was David.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Aubrey Marcus, who I love, is a life coach. He was Chris Marcus, now he's Aubrey Marcus. But when you're going through them big transitions in life, you're really suffering from a massive ego, like identity crisis. And sometimes to shift you into a new chapter of your life, you can do something like that. So it's a little trick.
That's amazing.
But anyway, I don't know if I answered your question. If I had to answer your question, I would say just more psychological support. We need more people like Liv here doing this sort of stuff. More role models, people like Blake.
People like you, Chris.
Yeah, I was about to say exactly the same thing.
No. You know what? My video is not special. This is the funny thing about it. I just want to get this out here actually quickly. People say, oh, wow, what a story. Like if you look through the comments of my video, like, what a story, the strongest guy I've ever seen, this, that, and the other. It's like, no, we were all the same on the ward. I didn't go through any more or less than anyone been through. Like Phil had Crohn's since he was 13. My friend David, who I'm really close with, had Crohn's since he was like 12. Like we all went. I was just the right person to tell it at the right time. But there's nothing special about my story.
We can agree to disagree. That's certainly how you told
not.
it.
You go to the ward at St. Mark's,
yeah.
And, but they, I know I can be charismatic. Maybe not today. I'm a bit unwell today, but and you hire a good videographer and stuff. But my friend David put out a story that was just as amazing, and maybe got 100 views, but it doesn't take away. It was as big a story as mine. It's just, so it's not a special story.
I'd love to talk about your coaching business. So we talked about kind of what your career was like prior to the surgery. Then obviously there was a period of time where you were undergoing a lot of treatment. How do you think your life experiences set you up for success as a coach?
Well, it's just that. It's life experience. I mean, I've paid the price. It's been a cost. I've paid a massive cost because I've earned like those lessons, those hard lessons, those you can't get that. Like you just can't throughout any other way but going through it. So yeah, but the coaching's been challenging at times as well, to be honest with you. It's not all been, it's fulfilling and it's amazing. It's a bit like working. So I work at St. Mark's as well, along with Caps. Again, it's meaningful and it's fulfilling, but it's always challenges because stuff still, it's still difficult to hear. So, sorry, I'm going around in circles here, but say counselors or therapists, it's difficult at the best of times. Counselors need counselors. I mean, it's an energy shift. If I'm coming to you, problems, save me, live, save me, live, save me, live, you're going to feel exhausted at the end of the day. But when you're coaching on direct experience from, a counselor might hear about me with a bag or someone with a divorce and they might not have gone through it. So it is challenging, and I've had to take the odd breaks from it, or just really be mindful about that. I think in the future, to be honest, I'll probably do more YouTube videos, more inspirational videos, because I've only done one and there's a lot more to say than 7 minutes. I think that, and some other things like a book or a course, so I might still do coaching, but I've temporarily put a break on it.
Yeah, I can really understand that. Sorry, Caps, go on.
Yeah, I mean, the other things that who are you coaching? Are you coaching people with IBD, cancer, stomas, or are you coaching
IBD, stomas. So it's just literally from the video. Video, I think it still gets about 30,000 views a month, something like that. And obviously it's a niche thing. And so, handful of people every month get in touch. My dad's struggling, my girlfriend's got a stoma, she's struggling, my husband, my boyfriend, me. Actually, a lot of people like that for other people. A lot of people like my husband he's not being the same. He's wallowing around and he's got the bag and he's not great, and can you talk to him, sort of thing. It's a lot of that sort of stuff.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, we talked a bit about the psychological support patients don't get. And the real answer is the patients who are really broken and really struggling with things, we find that resource for them. The people like yourself who have that positive attitude and seem to be okay on the surface, perhaps they don't get that same support because they look so well. And it's only afterwards when they reflect that perhaps, things come back to them. So that's where I think people like you, people like Blake, people like Ostique and sponsoring, because you sponsor you sponsor the rugby team?
Team Colostomy UK, yes. Yes.
And since I started following you on Instagram, I see such positive, wonderful messages.
Amazing stories.
On that kind of team. And that's how this message kind of gets out. And then there are avenues for those people to seek people like you, Chris, who have this unique life experience, which is lived and wonderful, and there isn't anybody else who can fulfill that need, I think, for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different need, isn't it? It's a different need to a counsellor or a therapist, or and people should go to all them. And if they're bad, I say I'm not for you. Like, I'm not some registered medical, this is different. We're going through a shared experience, sort of coaching-ish. Yeah, it's different to, obviously, the psychological support from like a doctor would be. It's very different. They just want to talk to someone who's been through it.
Yeah.
They just want to hear what the hell is it like? What do I do with this? What am I going to feel like when I wake up with a stoma? Like, can I go at the gym? How do I talk to girls again? Stuff like that.
You mentioned all the good stuff. I'd love to delve into dating if you wouldn't mind talking about it. Before we do that, you mentioned the work that you do with St. Mark's. I wondered if you could tell me a bit more about that, because I actually don't know what that involves.
Yeah, so I'm just helping out, really. I initially wanted a job in fundraising, but there wasn't a position there, really. But I basically was thinking to myself, P.S., this came about as well because coaching doesn't suit me to do it either full-time, as in, I literally had a great financial year, but I was really struggling because my life consisted of wake up, just Zoom, on the MacBook, and that was it. Didn't meet anyone, didn't meet a new friend, didn't leave the so I also wanted to be out and about and be around people, and that's why I thought, let's work at St. Mark's. I'll do coaching at the weekends or something like that. And so I initially wanted a job in fundraising because that's what I did. I did then, I think Caps mentioned one of them, that I was always doing gigs and events and concerts. But at the moment, I help more with the academic institute side, which is the courses, bit of the marketing, bit of the social media, stuff like that. But hopefully, might switch over to the fundraising at some point, because that's what I was doing when I was ill. In 2015, I did a fundraising gig. In 2016, I did a fundraising gig. And this year, fingers crossed, plug here, in central London, we're going to have one at the end of November. So I'll help and organise that.
Yeah,
I would like to come, please.
Just thinking about some of the things, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but what course? I mean, so St. Mark's, for those who don't know, it is a world-renowned gastrointestinal hospital. It's the only one in the world that is specifically for bowels, and we have surgeons and psychologists and gastroenterologists and whatnot. And we do really well on our courses for those people. What are we doing for patients, and what are we missing, and what would you say, Chris, we should do better at?
Well, funnily enough, me and you are involved soon, as you'll know, with the World IBD Day, which is a patient day. But I didn't hear about any of them, to be honest with you. when I was having surgery. Maybe there's bits, but I just think that there wasn't the communication. Are you asking me about like the specific hospital relationship, like when I was a patient?
I'm wondering about whether we should have a think about, getting you up on stage and you delivering a course for people with stomas, for people with IBD, for people, we've got a pediatric transition clinic as they kind of come through to kind of adulthood. I mean, it'd be lovely for them to have the opportunity to speak to someone like you and see positive examples of team colostomy and just get some real positive vibes and have the opportunity to ask the questions that perhaps clinicians such as myself are not as well kind of versed at answering the questions. You know way more than we do, and it'd be lovely to get you in front of an audience.
Oh, well, yeah, thanks. That'd be great. I mean, I spoke on stage at some St. Mark's event back in November, and I loved it, things like that. But courses, yes, helping out. I mean, that's why I like to. It's a perfect job, really, for me, being at St. Mark's. It's in and around this. It's the same message as the YouTube video, isn't it? It's the same message. It's the same purpose. It's the same meaning. It's the same alignment. So, yeah, we'll do it, man. We'll do it.
Let's do it.
So just delving into dating, we've done quite a few different episodes on dating and intimacy in general, 90% of which have been with women. But actually the last 3 episodes I've recorded have been with men who have opened up about their experiences. And actually it feels like it's exactly the same for everybody across the board, which is comforting. What did you find maybe challenging about dating for the first time after stoma surgery, and how did you overcome any challenges?
Just before we get into that, have you found that women have found it harder dating?
No. Feels like everyone has found it really tough to begin with. And there's been a lot of that same sentence you said earlier about exposure therapy. Everyone's kind of said, the more I talked about it, or the more first dates I went on, where I led with it immediately, the more I realised that nobody cared, and actually it was fine. So there's been some horror stories, don't get me wrong. Some people have had bad experiences. Some people have had one-night stands where the bag has burst, for example, which they found difficult to get over. Bethany talked about that in one of our episodes. But on the whole, it feels like it's more that you're concerned about it, but actually a potential partner very rarely is.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because in my mind, I had it a bit easier being a guy. Like, I feel just generally that women's, spend more on beauty and healthcare, and that image is maybe more important than a guy's in a way. Not to say a guy's not important, but in just traditional femininity, Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, it feels like it's been, with the women I've talked to feel more impacted by it on the dating thing. Whereas with guys, like, I wasn't too bad. Of course, at first it was like, how do I approach it? What do I say? Do I say on date 1? But then it's like, well, hi, I'm Chris, and or do I leave it too late? But now I'm just chilled about it. And again, it helps that the health video's out. I've not really got any horror stories with the dating.
Good.
I'm quite comfortable. I think it's just, it's that thing. I've got a video on YouTube called "Dating with an ileostomy bag." And again, on that, I said that the realization was that, again, that if you are confident within yourself, then people, it's an energy thing again. People match that energy. So if we're on a date now, Liv, and I say, "Oh, Liv, by the way, I've got something to tell you. I've got an ileostomy bag." You're gonna be like, "Whoa, this is a big deal."
Yeah.
Whoa, this guy's not coping. This is a big deal. But if I'm like, "Liv, I've got this thing. You might not have heard of it. It's called an ileostomy bag. It's actually really quite cool, actually, because it saved my life. Like, I would have literally died at 27. Would you believe it? I would have been in the 27 club, but it saved my life. And I did this video on YouTube as well. It reached like over 3 million views, and happy, healthy, and normal. But it's sort of like a tattoo now, this bag I've got. But it's quite cool, really. I'll show you.
That's a great way of describing it.
I mean, I'm just there you go, and I'm not very well today.
It's amazing.
That was really good, Chris. I think that's not the first time you delivered that line. I think that's,
It's obviously good practice, but that is the thing. And then very rarely will someone react with that energy, like, well, we need to talk about this or whatever. And if there's a few that do, when you've got that energy, but obviously as well, that takes time. It's all right, me just saying that, but it might take 5 years. It might take 3 years for you could say it, but to really own it and believe it, I mean, yeah, it could take a while, but you got to do that inner work within yourself, and then other people will be okay with it. And the few that aren't, sorry, just quickly, that's then a great metric.
yeah, absolutely.
But rather than me getting offended by like, oh, you just reacted weird, we'll stick with you, Liv, today. Then I'm not like, oh, like, what's wrong with me? I'm like, oh. So this has told me a lot about her, because I came in positive, I came in great, and she's reacted weird. So, well, better to know now that, you know, she's not the one. And it's a quick sort of filter.
Almost every person who's been on has said exactly the same thing. Better to know almost immediately than waste your time. And someone said something really poignant in an episode the other day, which was, you're not asking that person to take this on. All you're asking is for them to love you. You're not asking for anything else. Don't feel like this is a burden on somebody else, because it's not.
Yeah, I do think as well, just really quickly on this, when you're in different groups of people and different groups of people, they do generally react different. And obviously I'm not going to generalize here, but I've got some materialistic kind of friends, you know, they want the houses, the cars, the money, the stuff, the sofas. There's a chance that they might not react as well, because they're like a materialistic worldview sort of mindset. But I've got a lot of spiritual friends, and they love it. They're like I've been on meditation retreats, then we do like bits of breath work, and we take our tops off and we do like an ice plunge or whatever. And they're like, "Oh, get out, Chris!" Like that, and all the women as well. So I feel like the more advanced your friendship groups or your community as well, if they're a bit more switched on, because they're only going to react based on where they're at in life. Just like that thing of based on where someone's at in life, they're going to say, I wouldn't do that YouTube video, but that's where they're at in life. And it's the same with it. They're only going to react based on where that. But if they're really developed, you know, kind of person, maybe got a little spiritual edge to them, they're going to love it. They're just going to love the authenticity. Like when I've been on these bloody retreats, honestly, they love it. They love it. I'm more popular now with the bag than I was before. Because they just like, God, the authenticity, and like, you know, he can be vulnerable, and yet he's there, and he's just like, and he's gone through all that, and it's a hero's journey. So a lot of, you know, more not advanced people, but you know what I'm saying? Like, people are a bit more spiritually minded, I find, just really, I've not had one who's not accepting in that kind of world.
We will need to wrap this up shortly, but before we do, I just wanted to ask one final question. This is really broad and might be difficult to answer, but what advice would you give to somebody who has stoma surgery coming up? What might they expect, and perhaps what do you wish you had known before your surgery?
To get the stoma?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they're in a decent position compared to me, which is great. So in perspective, they've got time to think. They've got time to plan out what they want to do. I don't think there's anything too much to say on like advice for the surgery, because it's out of everyone's hands. It's up to Caps at that point. Hopefully he's having a good day. Just kidding. But the only thing I would say is that I heard a really fantastic surgeon at St. Mark's talk, and she said that, I think the thing I would say, sorry, just to wrap this up, sorry, I'm not feeling well today, I'm a bit all over, but it's that bit after you get the stoma, what do you do? I think that's the real conversation, not what do you do for the stoma surgery. That's like a doctor's thing where, well, a week before you prep and you get put to sleep, but you can't prep that. You just got to, fingers crossed, hope for the best. I think the conversation, if someone gets a stoma, would be, am I going to have it reversed or not? Do I go for the J pouch or not? I think those are the big conversations. And on that one, like I say, a surgeon said that, J pouch surgery is just, remind me of this word, caps, because I'm struggling a bit today. Cosmetic surgery.
Oh.
She said J pouch surgery is sort of like cosmetic surgery. There's no real benefit to that. And then obviously this is a nuanced conversation, so I don't want you to just put that message out there. But depending on, I would have a real think about whether you want to get it the J pouch or not, or whether you want to stay with the ileostomy bag. And that would come down to so many things: how young you are, if you've already got a partner and a job, what job you've got, how it affects that. But that's something I never really got to do. Not really, because I was drugged up, like morphine out my head. I didn't know anything. I didn't know what was going on really. And when I was in that state and then I woke up, I think it was like within a week before I went home, it was like, well, do you want the J pouch thing? We can reverse this or not. Or do you want to keep the ileostomy bag? Now, who in their right mind, if you've been going to the toilet normally for 20 odd years and 1 week, and then someone says, maybe we could reverse this.
You're going to do it. Yeah.
Like, and you've just seen this thing. I mean, I cried first time I saw my stoma, like, and someone says, maybe we can reverse it. I was just like, yeah. So I didn't really give that the time and attention with that decision it needed. And I did it. Yeah, it was when I was in hospital. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. It was too soon.
Just to add one or two bits on that, I think that's going to be, that's quite a nuanced bit of medicine there that we're talking about, whether to have the pouch or to stay with the stoma. One of the things that we're doing, and Chris is actually going to help me on this, so we're going to run a PhD project on quality of life and pouch surgery and how you decide and decisional regret and all those bits, and that's kind of coming up starting in October. But there is this aspect of time which we don't give people enough of, and it's a difficult metric to work out. How much time do people need? And they need different times depending on their age, how confident they are, their support network, and that's something we're all going to delve into. But I wish we had done for you, Chris, what we hope to do for the future patients, which is give them the peer-to-peer coaching, give them pouch nurses to speak to, give them ileostomy bags to try out, give them people like you to watch on YouTube and social media platforms just to really understand this journey. And I think that's what you're going to do.
And no regrets. Like, even if you give me more time, with the background I had as a performer, cruising around the world, like, of course I was going to give it a go. So no regrets. Like, I was always going to try. I was young enough and I had that travel lifestyle. I mean, if I was on a cruise ship now and I'd be in Barbados, I'd say, have you got my bags? They'd be like, bags? I'd be like, yeah, my ileostomy bags. So, I still get scared about just going on something like that. But I always would have tried and no regrets. However, now, I think I've mentioned this to you, Caps, really interestingly, that if you said now, we can give it another go with the J pouch and it'll be about a 9-month turnaround, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't do it now. It's been so long now. I can't remember what it feels like to poo normally.
Yeah. But you've had a very complicated journey to get to that bit. And that's, I suppose, the take-home message, which is it is incredibly nuanced and specific. And and again, you said in your video, there are different time points in your life which it made more sense. That's a brilliant video.
Exactly. So no one take my advice or whatever. It has to be, it has to be individual. If you're listening, it has to be so individual to you. And don't even listen to your friends. Don't even listen to you. Listen to people. But it's a bit like me sharing my health story. Ultimately, it has to come back to you and it has to come home to you and take as much time as you need to think about it. And, depend on what you want out of life and where you're at in life.
And seek as many experiences as possible as well. Like, go on social media, watch your video, look at as much content as you can, speak to as many people as you can.
Yeah, but then my video might scare the living daylights out of them. That's the thing as well. There's been some people have said, "Oh, you've got this positive video about colitis." I'm like, well, I don't know. Be careful who you're going to show it to. As in, because it was the worst case scenario almost in a way. Not worst. I mean, I'm still alive, but it was a pretty severe case.
You had a really tough time of it, and I suppose there aren't that many people with positive experiences out on social media because, perhaps they don't need to. And that's, again, something we need to kind of redress and give people the idea of this is, this percentage of people have this life, this percentage of people have these complications, and this is how we deal with them. But there are new wonderful things coming up, like we're starting robotic pouches, or we're already doing robotic pouches at Smart.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a game changer, we hope, for fertility and
amazing.
Things like that, which is one of the reasons people don't want to have a patch necessarily.
And I still, just before we finish, I still have to have another operation. So that is looming over my head. So the pouch that didn't work is still inside me, like off to the left or something. So one day I'm going to be back. Caps, do you want to do it? You better be good. But yeah, so I've still got one more, but it might be 10 years, it might be 15 years, it might be 20 years. But at some point I'll be back.
In the words of Arnie, we'll finish this podcast. Christopher, thank you so much for being here and being so open about your experiences. And Caps, thank you for being my co-host. I've loved it.
No worries.
Thank you so much, both. Bye. Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.